Let's get to the latest of what's happening on the Russia-Ukraine front. Vladimir Putin says that a decision to partially pull back troops has been made. However, in a meeting and in statements he made after meeting German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he went on to describe the events in Donbass as genocide and pushed once again for a quick resolution to Russia's issues with Ukraine joining the NATO. He's quite insistent that there should be a resolution there. Meanwhile, the news of Russia pulling back has given much relief to global markets. The Dow jumped as much as 300 points in open trade and has been steady through the day. Meanwhile, even crude has eased off. It went as high as $96 a barrel. It's come down about 3% to $93 a barrel. Futures are even lower. The question is, how long will this last? Are we seeing a walk back from Kremlin, or are we just seeing more and more posturing? To speak on some of these issues, I'm joined now by former Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking with us this evening on the India development debate. Let's just begin by your assessment of the current situation.
Well, it's a bit hazy because there's no clarity as to which way the situation will develop. Russia has made a partial gesture because there have been demands from the West that he should withdraw his forces. And there was an indication given by the defense minister of Russia also that after the current drills are over, there would be some kind of a pullback. But the central issue which triggered this remains, which is the open door policy of NATO and eventual joining of Ukraine to NATO. Now, Russia is very adamant about this, and I think he has a very good point in this regard because NATO has kept expanding ever since the demise of the Soviet Union steadily, despite the fact that although it is not very clear whether there was a firm agreement given by the Americans about not extending NATO beyond East Germany, but leave that aside for the moment. From 14 members in 1997 or whatever, now there are about 28 or 30, I don't know the exact figure, members of NATO. And they are NATO is coming closer and closer and closer to the heartland of Russia. Now, the argument given by the West, which to my mind is not plausible at all, that countries are free to make a choice. Now, the point is that the Americans and the Europeans also are free to make their own choice. They don't have to be governed by the choice that Ukraine may make. Now, they are not fools. They know the geopolitics, the gravity of the geopolitics involved.
Right.
They know very well that it is a direct threat to Putin, and Putin doesn't have to say this. Any geopolitical analyst will know that NATO is not a defensive organization. Look at what they did in Yugoslavia, what they did in Libya.
Dr. Sibal, let me just come to specifically what's happening today, which is where it seems like Russia is walking back from the brink. The question that emerges from there is, was all of this posturing? Are they really walking back from the brink, or is this just a bluff?
No, it's not true, because right from day one, the Russians have said that they have no intention to invade Ukraine. And I think from the Russian point of view, it makes absolutely no sense to invade Ukraine because they will be killing their fellow Slavs and get killed in the process. And they can't hold on to Ukraine, and it'll actually be the collapse of any security order that may exist in Europe now and in the future. And there'll be very severe long-term costs to Russia. So Putin is not a fool. What he has said is that I have made appeals to you for the last more than 20 years that please do not keep expanding NATO because it is a threat to my security. You will not listen to my appeals. Now, the only way to fix your minds is to tell you and convey to you how gravely we look at this and immobilize his troops, not with the intention to invade, but to force the West to come on the negotiating table and look for a solution for European security. And in this, he is succeeding. Now, he's made a partial gesture in terms of opening more doors for diplomacy, but he's also said at the same time that the core question of Ukraine's NATO membership still remains, as well as the positioning of strike forces of the West around Russia's border. Let me just make an additional point, which is this. The Americans have announced and the Europeans have participated in positioning forces, additional forces in Poland, in the Baltic states, and all around. Now, point is that Russia is not threatening any NATO country. The issue is Ukraine. So why are they positioning all these forces around Russia and countries which are not being threatened by Putin? So what is the intention behind this? At the same time, they say that they're not going to militarily intervene if Russia takes military action in Ukraine. So there's a lot of confusion in all this. And I think Putin is not wrong, Russia is not wrong, that the Americans have exaggerated the immediate threat of a...
That's what I wanted to ask you. So we had statements from the Ukraine heads of states as well, saying that panic is being caused, and a lot of it is coming from statements coming in from the United States, some from the UK and Europe as well. What exactly would be the United States' interest in this situation? Is it the protection of Ukraine, protection of NATO? And why do you think they are sounding more alarmist than anyone else?
Well, basically, this alarm is being led by the United States of America, and it is part of their domestic politics. They have not forgiven Russia for the defeat of Hillary Clinton and the charges of interference in the U.S. elections and the success of Trump in the last election. And there is a lot of hostility and ill feeling. The Ukraine lobby is very strong in United States, including in the State Department, where Victoria Nuland is the Undersecretary of State, and she was the one who was actually distributing sweets in the Maidan to those who were seeking to overthrow the Yankovic government. It will be like as if the American ambassador here went to the CAA demonstration here, that Shaheen Bagh Singh, and started distributing sweets to the protesters. Gross interference in the internal affairs of Ukraine in order to encourage the fall of Yanukovych, which ultimately happened. So the United States also has an interest in consolidating its hold over NATO, in keeping behind it solidly the Baltics and Poland and others, so that it has a say in European affairs, and the strategic autonomy which countries like France are trying to pursue will be nipped in the bud, because this will not go anywhere, because the Russian threat has been projected and will continue to be projected, and this makes the possibility of a separate European Russian understanding on European security almost impossible.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Sibal, for joining us and giving us your perspective on what has been happening so far.